to just review and Senator Sessions and Shelby a letter just recently. I don't even know where you had time to get it or what, but anyway, a couple of things that I mentioned in the letter. And the first thing I'd like to mention is things that affect me. And the reason why I don't believe, I honestly don't believe, and if I stood in front of the Lord today, I'd say the same thing. I do not believe that this country will pull out of this for two reasons. One, the citizens, and two, the people that's supposed to be the leaders. The citizens, and most of them in this room here, may not be as old as I am, but you're getting there. They don't really, when it comes down to it, they don't want to take the hit that we need to take. It was the most stupid idea ever conceived by any human being that's ever been born, to think that you could possibly insure a 65-year-old plus person for $45 a month. How stupid can anyone be? Two, I paid Social Security for 47 years. I would have paid it 49, except 2 years I was in service, and at that time, government employees paid zero in Social Security. The last 2 years I was in, I did pay Social Security. Of the 47 years that I paid, almost all of them, I paid every dime in that the law would allow me to pay. It made no difference if you was a millionaire or you made $5,000 a year, you paid a certain amount. I ordered pay records for what I paid in, and I'm being honest. And that's what everyone needs to do, including the Congress. We need to take one of those honestly. Not one person in this room, including myself, is paid enough in Social Security to support what you draw. Be honest. It's time for us to take a hit. We need to cut Social Security about 25%. And believe me, I'm probably the fourth person in the room. And that's all right, I'll make it. Medicare, what a joke. $45 a month should be doubled, at least. Take one trip to the emergency room. I dropped a trailer towel on my foot recently. Cost $1,300 something bucks. Just one trip to the nurse, to the emergency room.
It's $97.
So many programs. There's
$97 a month, not $45.
Sir?
It's $97 a month, not $45.
Mine's 45. I pay 45 out of my
You got a break, then I did.
No. Well, your wife may pay some.
I don't have a wife.
Well, I pay $45 a month. That's all I'm overpaying. But 97 is underpaid. You might as well get real. 97 is underpaid.
I agree.
That's a joke. And then here's another thing. Here's the Congress, well, the elite of our country. The scandals, you name it. One just left. He's on the lam. He's on the dole for the United States government now, for as long as he lives. The Rostenkowskis, all the others, the Bill Clintons, all the scoundrels that's been up there. But no one in Congress has what it takes to stand up and say, it's time we took a hit. Most of them that are up there are multimillionaires, or come close to that, or they live in a lifestyle and that have money that people like I don't even think about. And I'm willing to take a hit. Why should someone such as Obama or the Clinton's worth about 35, 40 million now? We're paying for his house in White Plains. They say, oh, we got it. Well, he built a little room out there for the security people to stay in. He charges the federal government a big bunch of money for the federal agents to stay in, which covers the expenses of the whole grounds. Things like this in government are ridiculous. Another thing, a guy like Scottie Pippen.
I'm waiting for you to get to the strip and the treadmill.
Well, there's so much of it. But I could name hundreds of people that I have kept up with over the years. A guy like Scottie Pippen, he's a good example. Sam Donaldson, I can go on and on. Scottie Pippen made $9 million a year playing for the Portland Trail Blazers. He bought a little piece of land in Arkansas. He drew $100,000 from agriculture department. This is just a few of the shenanigans that the government is the reason why we're in the shape we're in. And then people just to be honest, and say, okay, we're gonna have to take a hit to get this thing straightened out. And then when we get it straightened out, we make some.
Well, I wish every voter in America had your understanding of the austerity measures we need to implement.
I would
really do. Appreciate
I
your
would
insight.
rather I'll take the American liberties and the free flag. And one meal a day, one. You take socialism and all give away if you want, and 3 meals and do what you want to do.
They are another round. Yes, sir.
First, as a retired veteran, I'd be willing to take a cut also. You know, even though we serve our nation, that doesn't mean I'm entitled to more than any other civilian. You know, that's just how I feel. I would like to say that, you know, Obama's shifty, you know, and I think everybody knows that. You know, the way he's doing stuff, the way
You're being very polite.
I'm trying to. I don't understand how, first of all, he could show up 2 weeks ago and say he's going to take over the economic situation. You know, where's it been the last 2 years? He put Biden there. But why did it take him 2 years to say, okay, you know, I'm going to get involved now?
I like the part where he blamed Congress for the spending. I thought, well, you know, you were the guy who was in Congress the 2 years when all this started.
One of the things I'd like to about his shiftiness is, since Obama's taken office, the foreign aid numbers are no longer combined to show foreign aid numbers, but it's spread around to different departments now to make it more difficult to compile the numbers.
They're masking it.
Right, they're masking the numbers. And I'd also like to say, why are we giving foreign aid to countries that are buying our debt? You know, I think Brazil, we give them 300-something million a year for infrastructure, and they turn around and buy $200 million of our debt. That's just an example, a wild example. But I just don't know, as far as foreign aid goes, why do we pay countries that are buying our debt? I just don't understand that.
Let me mention something about my role in Congress for a moment. Typically, I'm discovering you have what I call the 30,000-foot view, where you're looking at the big picture, and then you've got where you're in the weeds and you're looking at the details. I'm on armed services, homeland security, science, space, and technology. SST is NASA, it's a National Science Foundation, things of that nature. So I'm getting into the weeds, and I've only been there 5 months, but I'm getting into the weeds in those 3 committees. And even with those 3 committees, you have subcommittees where you really get into the weeds. And then for each committee, you've got about 3 or 4 subcommittees you're not on. Somebody else is studying in greater detail those particular issues. For me to have greater knowledge about, you know, being in the weeds, even only 5 months, and I haven't accumulated all the knowledge I need. You're talking about the budget committee or ways and means or appropriations. So I don't have all the insight I would like to have on how many different ways foreign aid is being funneled to people. I mean, there's a food program that goes to the Department of Agriculture, okay? Or through that budget, I assume it's through the Department of Agriculture. It might be some other agency of similar nature. You've got monies that go through the State Department. I don't know where it all goes. All I know is it's at least 20-something billion dollars. I've been told 20 to 30 billion, but that might be only including direct foreign aid. It's somewhat akin to what we just did with the FY11 budget. And, you know, it's one of those things where fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. If y'all may recall, some Republicans signed the pledge to America last year. I didn't, but some did. And the pledge was, we're going to cut $100 billion from spending during FY11. Well, the leadership gets into it. Maybe I should say the majority of Republicans get into it. And that $100 million that they're talking about is from, it's not that way during the campaign, but it's that way now in Congress as we're having to come up with spending cuts. That $100 billion was really compared to what Barack Obama's proposed budget was, which I kind of questioned, but nonetheless, that's what they were saying. So when they came up with $100 billion in cuts, it was in contrast to Obama's wish list. That actually converted into $61 billion in real reductions in spending from the prior fiscal year. So you see the marketing, $100 billion versus $61 billion. Then when we're on the verge of not paying our troops who are overseas fighting for us because of the risk of a government shutdown, an agreement is reached to avoid that government shutdown, and we're told, well, it's $38 to $39 billion, okay? Give or take $500 million. Then, shortly thereafter, you have a Congressional Budget Office report that comes out that says, well, it's not really 38 to 39 billion, it's 300-something million. I mean, that's a pretty big difference. Now, then we have a heated discussion, and we have a former director of the CBO come in and say, well, the CBO's report of 300-something million really isn't what's happening. It's really more than that, but it's spread out over an extended period of time, so some of it's in FY11, some of it's in FY12. What I'm getting at is it's very difficult to get information that you can rely on 100%. So I'm much more skeptical about what I'm told now, and you're going to find me much more willing to vote no on some things because I'm unconvinced with the evidence presented to me that things are what they seem to be. But I share your frustration with what you just said, and given the opportunity, and I don't control what gets to be voted on. But that's the Rules Committee, that's the House leadership. So to a large degree, we're reacting to what is in front of us. I might not get to vote on a balanced budget constitutional amendment that is substantive. I'm afraid it's going to be one of these things that they're going to call a balanced budget constitutional amendment, but has holes through it where it really doesn't restrain spending. And I've seen some drafts where I'm an attorney, and I look at it and say, well, we could do this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden, that thing's not worth the paper it's written on, or parchment if we're going to make it part of the Constitution.
I just think Shane Obama 2 weeks ago pulls this out of his butt. Shows up, says, I'm going to take it over.
Well, that's because Eric Cantor...
Now he's got everybody fired up.
Eric Cantor withdrew from the negotiations. Eric Cantor is the majority leader, a pretty good gentleman from Virginia. Actually, he's A1 quality, really good guy, okay? He is the House negotiator. And during those negotiations, the Democrats keep pushing for this tax increase or that tax increase. And the House, I don't think, is going to vote for a tax increase. I could be wrong, because again, we've got that 120 to 119 split. We're determined it's 119. The 120, though, you marry them up with the Steny Hoyer Democrats, or the Nancy Pelosi Democrats, and all of a sudden we're in a minority. But the Democrats keep pushing taxes, and Eric Cantor keeps saying, no, we're not doing taxes. It's just not going to come out of the House with tax increases. Right. They keep pushing. He says, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll trade you for some tax increases for Obamacare. You repeal Obamacare, and we'll agree to raise taxes a little bit. Okay, and Obamacare is about a $70 billion a year hit to our budget. Although one CBO report says if we repeal Obamacare, it actually costs us more money. So you got to be careful again as to the CBO reports. They are based on what you tell them to evaluate. And if you give them the right instructions, that can dramatically affect what the CBO report reflects. Okay? And so our information is repeal of Obamacare saves $70 billion a year, but because the way the Democrats instructed CBO to do the counting, when they were in control of Congress, it actually saves us money, in part because of significant tax increases that were earmarked to help fund it. But I share your concern on all those things.